and read forward, I'm pretty sure I'll get where we need to be.
Michelle, you're going to pull that up?
I wrote the file out, I'm gonna let you listen to it again. He wants to go back to where the car was, right?
Okay.
Defense, might be up there.
Oh, I don't know if it's getting audible.
It is, I'm gonna put it on.
Oh, okay, all right. I was just thinking, I know if we went back that far for sure, we'd hear it.
Yeah, his door, why are you opening? He was standing with his back against the door. You think that's far enough back?
Yeah, I believe so.
The passenger came out of the car. He had his door wide open, and he was standing with his back against the door. Did you see the two of them walk towards each other? Not at that point. Okay, then you describe it to us. What did you see once you saw Mohammed walking? And over his body, down and out, like he was going to shoot his hand. What did you see happen when Mohammed extended his hand like he was going to shake his hand? The passenger stepped forward, and he swung up and at Mohammed. I saw blood fly. What did Mohammed do in that second? I saw Mohammed up his left hand in a block, and the right hand, the solid cut of the food, and his right hand in his fist, and he hit the passenger on the face, towards the lip, and that was his one and only punch. Where are you? We're going to go through it slow. Where are you now? Are you still in your car? I actually opened up the door, and I've got my left leg is standing up, and I'm yelling. What's the next thing you see that happens in front of you? Mohammed grabs the passenger with both arms behind his shoulders like a bear hug. He grabbed both of his arms straight behind him and the fist over his shoulders. What happens? And he's holding him close. Are you still at your car, or have you approached them? No, I'm still in my car. I'm still yelling. Keep going. What do you see next is happening in front of you? They wind up struggling. Mohammed's still down in a hole. And they wind up struggling towards their car in front of us. And they wind up somehow in the car beside them. Where are you at this point? I'm still at my car. And they wind up inside the car with the driver on his side. Okay, you have to explain it to us, right? So how did you see the driver get on his back? Mohammed is still in front of you. And where are you? At this point, I'm walking towards. As you're walking towards them, do you see the driver get out of the car? Yes. And what happens? He's coming around, and he looks at me, and he's behind me in his car, and he's like, you're going to come get your man. And do you see this man sitting there?
Right there. That's where he did.
Okay.
We can't.
Okay, well, Judge, I'm making a gesture, and there's more than one man sitting at this table.
I'm going to sustain the objection. I'm not going to let her identify the defendant
In court.
in court. Okay, so you can bring the jury. No, we want to bring her in first, and then bring the jury back.
What? Right now, I need it right now.
Tell Diane would like you to come back.
Right, because we've been researching the case
That's fine.
file.
That's okay. That's okay. State, you may continue.
Thank you, Your Honor. Okay, Ms. Gembolis, do you remember the last question I asked you?
Yes, sir.
Okay, what was the last question I asked?
You asked me if I saw him in the courtroom.
Okay. Now, you were explaining to us what you were seeing in front of you, and you were explaining to us the interaction you were having with him. What
Yes,
were
ma'am.
you saying?
I was saying that he told me I need to come get my men.
What did you do?
I shook my head and I was walking quickly towards the car.
Okay?
And I got over there and the passenger was laying on his back. Muhammad was laying on top of him with his arms still behind him the way he had grabbed him before in the bear hold.
Were they inside the car or outside the
They
car?
were inside the car.
Are you outside of the car?
Yes, ma'am.
How close are you to the car?
I am actually right there at the door.
Okay, and where's the driver?
The driver is behind me.
Are you talking to him?
At that point, no. He is standing behind me. I am trying to get Muhammad up off of the passenger.
How?
I am pulling at the back of his shirt, saying, baby, come on, stop this shit, let's go.
What do you see?
Muhammad is on him, and they're still holding the passenger in the bear hold. And I am tugging at the back of his shirt, trying to pull him up off of the passenger. And the driver is standing behind me. And when I did that, Muhammad turned his head and screamed, he's got a fucking knife. And at that point, I looked at the driver behind me, and I looked at him and I yelled, you better get your knife from your boy so I can get his ass up off him.
And what happened next?
He reached in, got the knife.
Where did he get the knife from?
The passenger handed it over to him.
And what happened next?
I told Muhammad, baby, he gave him the knife, come on, let's go. And I pulled him up off of him.
What, if anything, do you notice about Muhammad?
At that point, when I got him up, I saw blood from here to here. He had on a white shirt. He had blood from right up under his throat, from his chest, all the way to his belly button.
Okay, what's the next thing that happened?
My first thought was I need to get him away from them. I'm standing to the left of him. He is standing, we're both in between both of these guys. They're both standing up at this point. I put my right hand on his left wrist. I take 2 steps forward. I said, baby, come on, let's go. And they both start pounding him.
I'm going to object.
An object. What grounds?
Roland.
Overruled. Go ahead.
Keep going, Ms. Gembolis.
They both start pounding him.
Where are you at this point?
I run back to my car to get my phone.
Okay, are you saying anything at this point?
No, ma'am.
What happens when you run back to your car to get your phone?
I turn around, I grab my phone, I turn around, and I scream. I see both of them pounding him. I hold up my phone, I'm calling 911, y'all better leave him the fuck alone. At that point, they break off from him. The driver goes back around, gets in the car, and the passenger, Muhammad, walks away, starts walking towards me. The passenger points his knife. He said, you're dead.
I'm objecting.
Ms. Gembolis, let me take you through this part of,
Well, go ahead.
Let-
Continue.
let me take you through this part for a minute. You're explaining to us that you're at your car and you're yelling that you're going to call 911. Where's Muhammad?
He's getting beat by both of them.
Now, it's when you yell that you're calling 911, are you telling us that then that stopped?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And where's Muhammad?
He's starting to walk back.
And what do you notice about him?
He's I mean, he's bleeding.
And at that point, did Muhammad make it to you?
After they left.
Okay, so at that point, they left.
Yes, ma'am.
What happened when you got to Muhammad?
When he got to me,
Okay, sorry, tell us, what happened?
his first words were, "Move the fucking car back, Wendy." And I was like, "Baby, get in the car. I need to get you to the hospital." And he's like, "Call fucking Corey over here."
Okay, did you,
He was mad. His adrenaline was pumping. He was mad. He was walking straight. It was like you couldn't tell he was hurt except for the blood. He was so mad. He was walking straight. And I turned at that point. I saw Corey. I yelled at Corey that Muhammad wanted him. I backed up the car, got it out of the way. Muhammad walked over to the side of Corey's house. I'm sorry.
Would you like to, if you need a little water, or need a moment, we get.
Yes.
Are you okay, Mr. Bowden? You need to take a break. Let me know if you need to take. Go ahead, Steve.
He walked over to the side of Corey's house by the tree that was there and laid down. I rushed over and he had started sweating really, really bad. And I rolled up his shirt and I saw 5 places where he had been stabbed. 1 up under his left arm, 1 up under his left rib, and 3 on his belly button. Somebody had brought over towels. There was 3 of us around him. We each grabbed a towel and started applying pressure. I was talking to him. I was like, "Baby, hang in there. We love you. Think of your family. Think of us."
back to this narrative?
Overruled, go ahead.
He grabbed my fingers, my ring finger and my index finger, and he squeezed as hard as he could. The ambulance and police showed up, and they made me move. He didn't want to let go, but they made me move. And I wanted to go in the ambulance with him, but they wouldn't let me. And that was the last time I saw him.
Let me ask you a question.
Hold on a second. Are you okay? You okay, Matt? Okay, go ahead.
You just described how Muhammad was acting when he was coming back to you, stabbed and bleeding.
Yeah.
When Muhammad got out of the car to go towards the car in front of him, was he mad?
No.
Now, you told us that was the last time you saw Muhammad.
Yes.
Are you aware that there was then an investigation into his killing?
Yes.
And during the course of the investigation, did you participate?
Yes.
Did you give statements?
Yes.
Did you describe the incidents you saw?
Yes.
Did you describe both people involved?
Yes.
Did you have an opportunity to be shown a photographic lineup?
Judge, I'm going to object. Can we approach?
Ladies and gentlemen, it is 12:30, and of course, my staff's been here since, 8:15. So we are going to break for lunch now. I'd like to get started if you can get back by 1:30, I'd like to get moving as soon as we get back. So try and get back at 1:30. Where are they going to meet? You need more time than that?
I don't think so.
Huh?
Quarter two?
All right, 1:45, then I want to get started. As soon as you get back, she got you more time for lunch. You look like you could come back in an hour, but that's okay. You want to come back in an hour? All right, you lose. Okay, be back at 1:30. We want to get going as soon as we can. And we'll see you then. And again, remember, don't talk about the case among yourselves. And again, remember, I keep telling you this, but I'm required to. If you bump into any of the participants, they're going to ignore you. Please don't find it to be rude. Thank you. Ms. Gembolis, is it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I'm going to ask you to be back as well at 1:30 because we're going to complete your testimony as soon as we can, okay?
Yes, Judge.
Okay. So with that, we're adjourned.
Out of the courthouse, I observed Wendy standing across the street smoking a cigarette, speaking with two of the spectators who had been watching the trial from the area where the victim's family usually sits. As I walked by, I heard the white, blonde lady say to Wendy, quote, "They're trying to make it seem like ... end quote. And I kept walking and didn't hear anything else. Felt like I should disclose it. He disclosed it to us. There he is. I'm disclosing it to the courts. I know the state, we usually make the rules in quote. I know the state did, and you shouldn't be talking with any other witnesses in the case, but I think it's problematic.
Are they witnesses?
I don't believe so. I believe it's
Next of
the
kin.
victim's family.
What's problematic?
Well, I was going to finish, but the judge asked a question.
Go ahead.
I still think it's a little problematic that she's talking about her current testimony, not her testimony that she gave, but her current testimony, and now she has outside people saying, you know, here's what we think, here's where we think, you know, it's going. I mean, it was kind of cut off. I don't know what they're talking about, but it seemed clear that they're talking about her current testimony.
We don't know what they're talking about. Mr. Kimmock doesn't know what they were talking about. Are you making a motion at this point?
Yeah, I'll make a motion for mistrial.
Then we have to have a full-blown hearing.
To what? A motion to what?
She hasn't gone
You
to
turned
We
it that way.
just
mistrial.
Okay, all right.
I need time to pull case law and research.
No, you don't. What you need to do is, we need to find out from those two people that she was, well, we got to get Joe in here. I don't know if the two people she was talking to were two people that were in here when the other person testified. I don't know if they told her anything about the other person's testimony. That's my only concern.
Okay. And Judge, I felt it out. I got
No,
the
look,
text. I felt
I'd have done the same thing. I would have done the exact same thing. But the issue here is, did they talk about, and Joe didn't hear anything. I guess we're going to talk to Joe in a moment. You think he can remember how to swear a witness in now? Joe, would you get up on the stand for a minute, please?
Sure.
Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please state your full name, spell your last name for the record.
Joseph Allen Kenlock, K-I-M-O-K.
And the court will recognize the fact that Mr. Kimmick is an attorney with Regional Counsel and was here for the most of the morning session. I guess counsel, go ahead and inquire.
Why don't you just put on the record, can you tell us what you observed during the lunch break and exactly what you heard and who the parties were?
Sure, I walked out of the courthouse actually to go get a sandwich from across the street. I observed Ms. Gembolis on the sidewalk across the street. She was smoking a cigarette. She was speaking with two individuals, one of whom was the white kind of middle-aged blonde woman that's been sitting in the pew over there throughout the trial. I walked past them to go to the sandwich shop, and I heard the white woman say to Wendy, they're trying to make it sound like I kept walking, I didn't hear anything else.
And that was everything, and that encompassed the text that you sent to all parties, correct?
Correct. I know that I walked into Subway, the line for Subway was way too long, so I left and walked back to my office, and they were still out there talking, but I didn't hear what they said at that point. That was it.
State?
No questions.
Okay, Joe, thanks. Is Ms. Gembolis here? Because I'm going to make some inquiries of her. Don't leave it there, they're expensive.
She's not outside, John.
She's not here yet? Okay.
Judge, while that's happening, before we came back to court, Mr. Ehrman asked me for a plea offer, and I told him that I wasn't making him a plea offer at this time, but that I did recalculate the guidelines, and that the bottom of the guidelines is 180.9 months, which includes Mr. Elder's 39-count violation of probation, 2 prior misdemeanors, and then the court imposed sanction of 4 points and 24 points for violent offender of special concern. But I really need to know if Mr. Elder wants to enter into plea negotiations, as, again, we're in the middle of a speedy trial. I have, we've used a lot of state resources, where witnesses are here, and I have a whole day lined up tomorrow. I also, obviously, everyone knows, Mr. Elder can at any time plead open to the court, and Your Honor can impose a guideline sentence or whatever sentence Your Honor believes is fair and appropriate. The victim, the next of kin is here, they could address the court, it could be a sentencing hearing, because there's no mandatory minimum in the case.
Your client is how much, 3 years or something like that?
I think 4 years.
4 years.
Yes, sir.
That's 48 from 180.
Well, the bottom of the guidelines is approximately 15.075 months. So with the
No,
credit
15.
years, sorry.
Hold on.
So with the
Sorry about that.
so with the
Just
credit.
hold on, have to take a seat and just wait.
It's almost exactly 4 years this July. So,
4 years today.
yep. Excuse me. And then, of course, I can't tell the Department of Corrections how much game time to give Mr. Elder, but he wouldn't be sentenced as a habitual offender or violent offender or special, BZCQ or GORD or the other designations. And that's something Mr. Ehrman can explain to him about the percentage of game time he would receive, and then the remainder would be his term. And I told the next of kin that I would just explain it that way to Mr. Ehrman, and that I really need to know if this is going to be a plea and a sentencing.
We would love to, I've been trying to resolve this case through several different prosecutors. I've never had a formal offer without the stipulation or the condition that he testifies against his friend Armando. So there has never been, from what I'm hearing as I stand here now, there still is not a formal offer, but she said that I'm not making that offer, but that's what he scores. That's what I heard.
Right.
Right, so I still don't have an offer.
I need,
Okay, wait a minute. So you're just saying, I'm not making an offer, but it's 180 on the bottom, right?
right, because he asked me for a plea offer.
Yeah.
I have to have a serious conversation about that with the family. That's my obligation. And we're doing this all in the middle of trial, as we've done everything all in the middle.
Then we're just going to keep going with the trial, and you guys can talk tonight.
Well, Judge, I just don't think that's fair to the state to keep expending resources and putting on evidence and going through this case. If he wants to plea, I need to know, and I'll go talk to the family right now before we keep going.
Well, what's he going to plead to? Just up in the air? Or
Well, no, I mean, I told Mr. Ehrman that if I was Mr. Ehrman, I would start with talking to my client about a guideline plea offer. No one's presented me any evidence to depart from the guidelines, and he...
Let me ask you the question this way.
If the family...
If the family agreed, would you offer the 180 months?
Yes.
Okay, stop. Mr. Elder, would you raise your right hand, sir? You swear or affirm tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Okay, what's the max he's looking at here?
Well, he technically could get 30 years on the manslaughter and 195 years if the
Right.
sentences were consecutive, because 39 counts of grand theft is 5 years
I
per
got
count.
it, okay. All
And
right.
it could be consecutive to
Okay,
each other.
Mr. Elder, basically what I'm hearing here is, but I want to check with you first before we waste any time. The state is saying that if the family agreed that the state would offer the bottom of the guidelines, which is 180 months, which is approximately 15 and change in years. You've got 4 years to the day in. So you do 11 years minus whatever game time there would be. I have no idea what that is. I've heard talk 85%, something like that. I've heard all kind of variations on that thing. If it were offered, is it something you'd consider? Because if it's not, we just keep going.
No.
And that's the answer. Okay, let's get Ms. Gembolis in here if she's here. I need to speak with her first to understand.
Judge, before we do that, I hate to do this and jump around, but I just wanted to put on the record that I'm objecting to both an in-court identification and out-of-court identification on the basis already raised, and also
The what?
the basis already raised.
What are you objecting to? You had your head down.
I'm sorry, an in-court or out-of-court identification on the basis that
Okay.
we've already made, and on the motion to suppress that was not heard, arguing that the court could hear a motion to suppress during trial. So I just want to preserve the record to show
Motion
that
to suppress.
the identification of Mr. Elder by Ms. Gembolis, also on the basis of the grounds raised in our motion to suppress.
Nobody said, we had the motion in limine and nobody brought up to even have a motion to suppress. I know,
Well,
but,
we brought it up before, but the court said.
I know, but nobody brought it up like before the trial or anything. I mean,
No, Your Honor made it clear that the defense needs to set that for a hearing
I
if they
know
want
that.
a hearing.
Okay, all right, I got that. Okay, you made your record. Okay, I'm still on my ruling that she cannot make an in-court identification. That ruling stands. So bring her in. I want to ask her about what happened across the street. And I'll give both counsel an opportunity to ask questions when I'm done. Ms. Gembolis, let me remind you, you're still under oath.
Yeah, sure.
It came to my attention a few moments ago that during the lunch break, you were across the street speaking with, I believe, the victim's family. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And it was brought to my attention that a member of the victim's family made a partial statement to you to the following, something to the following effect. I know what they're trying to do or they're trying to do. Do you recall that statement being
No,
made?
sir.
Okay. What were you talking about?
What were we talking about? I honestly don't know what you're referring to.
So you were not having a conversation with any of the victim's family?
We were talking about, we've been going through this for 4.5 years together.
I appreciate that. I understand that, but, when you're in the middle of testimony, you can't talk about your testimony with anybody.
Right, but we weren't talking about the testimony at all.
So you're telling me that you were not talking about your testimony nor the testimony of the witness before you?
No, sir.
Well, it comes back to my question. What were you talking about?
We were talking about Tahara being harassed earlier.
Okay. All right, State, any questions?
No, Your Honor, no questions.
Defense, any questions?
Do you recall any dialogue to the effect of
they're trying to make it seem like, and then something, they're trying to make it seem like, do we call it any dialogue with that?
No, sir.
Was there any discussions about the witness testimony that was given before yours?
No, sir.
Okay, very well. The court satisfied that there was no violation of this sequestration, of the court's pretrial order. So with that, State, please continue.
I have no questions.
Oh, you're finished?
No, because we, the jury.
No, I mean, you have no questions of her now.
Yes, would you like Ms. Gembolis to remain at the witness stand while the jury returns?
That's
or-
what I was going to do.
Okay.
Do you want me to have her come out and have the jury come back in? You tell me, you're a witness.
No, it's fine.
Okay, just bring it back in.
The court's denying the motion for mistrial based on the testimony?
Yes, I'm denying the motion for this trial. Now, let me remind you, Mr. Bowles, if you're still on the stand when we take the afternoon break or something, you cannot talk about this case at all.
Yes, sir.
Please be seated, State.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, Ms. Gembolis.
Good afternoon, Tim.
Before we resumed for the break, I had asked you about the investigation of the case. Do you recall?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. During the course of the investigation of the case, I'm going to draw your attention to April 24th, 2014, where you shown a photographic lineup.
April 24th?
April 24th, 2014, where you shown a photographic lineup. Well, let me do it this way.
Okay.
I'm showing defense counsel what's been marked as State Exhibit A for identification. It's a composite of 7 pages. May I approach the witness?
Yes.
Ms. Gembolis, I'm showing you what's been marked as State Exhibit A for identification. It's a composite exhibit of 7 pages.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Do you recognize State Exhibit A?
Yes, ma'am.
How do you recognize it?
It's my signature.
Okay. Does it have a date signifying when it was done?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And do you remember, can you please look at each page and make sure that it is the photographic lineup?
That's exactly the photo lineup. as I
Okay.
remember.
At this time, Your Honor, the state moves what's been marked as State Exhibit A into evidence.
Defense?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to admit it over defense objection.
Judge, permission to publish to the jury?
Go ahead.
Okay, I'll publish it by hand and then later show it on the... And then I just need a moment, please. Ms. Gembolis, before you made an identification, you read the instructions, that's the first page of the exhibit.
Yes.
Did anyone tell you who to pick?
No.
And we saw that you made the identification.
Yes.
I'm showing you the identification you made.
Yes.
How did you mark the identification?
I recognized him.
How did you signify that it was you and the date? Did you sign it?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and did you date it?
Yes.
And when you made this identification, how sure were you?
100%.
And this identification is made of the person who what? The person who did what?
Who was driving and standing behind me.
And the testimony you told us earlier about the person you were talking to that got out of the car while the passenger was stabbing,
Yes, ma'am.
Muhammad is...
Objection leading.
Sustained.
All the testimony, this identification that you made
Yes, ma'am.
is of who regarding the testimony you gave to us today?
The one sitting here in the courtroom.
No further questions.
Defense?
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon.
I want to turn your attention to April 25th, 2014. You were working that day, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And you spoke to Mr. Knight from work.
Yes.
Okay. You told him that your mom was in town.
Yes.
Okay. And that you wanted to go meet her.
Well, that she wanted me to come meet her, yes.
Okay. And you wanted him to come.
Yes.
And he wanted to come.
Yes.
Okay. Now, do you remember what time you got off work that day?
It was after 8:30.
Okay. So you picked him up after work?
Yes.
Correct? And you picked him up at his sister's house?
Yes.
Okay. You'd been to that house before, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And that house is in Hallandale Beach, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, when you got there, Mr. Knight was with his sister,
No, he was with his nephew and his son.
his nephew and his son. Okay. And to your knowledge, had you been with them throughout the day?
Yes.
Do you recall how old they were?
Mikkel was 12. Or 11, I'm sorry. And Little Mo was... No, Little Mo was 12, I'm sorry. And Mikkel was 10.
10 and 12? Okay, so you picked him up at what time?
It was 9:15.
9:15. And you start driving to Best Western?
We started going the back way. He said he had a shortcut or quicker way to get there.
Okay, but where your mom was staying at the Best Western,
Yes.
correct? And that's near the Port Everglades?
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yes.
okay. And she was there because she was going on a cruise the next day,
Yes.
correct? Okay. And to your knowledge, that that Best Western is on Sheridan and US 1?
Yes.
So you testified you picked him up at 9:15 in Hallandale, is that correct?
Yes.
And his sister lived near Hallandale Beach Boulevard and Dixie Highway, correct?
Yes.
Now, you testified that he gave you a shortcut?
He said he knew a shortcut.
Okay. Now, when you picked him up, the plan was that you were going to go to the Best Western and spend the evening with your mother, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So you did not have plans to go shoot pool or court?
No.
And to your knowledge, Mr. Knight did not have plans to do that either?
As far as I knew, no.
Okay. He indicated he was going to be with you?
Yes.
Now, I just mentioned Corey. You know Corey McMath, correct?
Yes.
And you met him through Mr. Knight, correct?
Correct.
They were friends.
Correct.
So, on your way, Corey calls him, correct?
Correct.
And it seems to you like Corey wants you guys to come to his house, correct?
Yes.
Muhammad told him, no, I'm not coming.
Yes.
Okay. And he's still telling you which way to go, correct? He's
Yes.
still giving you directions.
Yes.
Sorry, let me clarify. Mr. Knight is still giving you the directions on where to go.
Yes.
Okay. a short time later, Corey called again, correct?
Yes,
Okay. And now Mr. Knight is starting to get a little irritated,
yes,
okay? And he actually raises his voice to Corey, correct?
he did,
And he says, fine, we're passing by your house, we'll come.
yes.
Okay, so from there, how long did it take you to get to Corey's house?
A minute,
A minute. So you were heading from Hallandale Beach up to Sheridan and US 1,
yes,
and when Corey called, you were 1 minute from his house in Miramar, correct?
correct,
And Mr. Knight told you that was a shortcut?
he did.
Now, when you picked him up in Hallandale, he had a cup with him, correct?
He had one?
A cup with him?
Yes,
Okay, it was that red Solo cup you mentioned?
a small red Solo cup.
Okay, and that had vodka in it, correct?
Yes,
Was he intoxicated?
no,
Objection calls for speculation, not an expert lay opinion.
Staying.
Now, you had seen him use cocaine previously.
Objection, improper impeachment,
Background
victim
bill.
character.
Overruled. Go ahead.
You had seen him use cocaine before, correct?
yes,
Okay. And you'd seen him use it several times a day.
yes,
And obviously seen him drinking alcohol.
yes,
Were you aware that he was using Flocka?
no,
Now, you testified earlier that he was your boyfriend, correct?
correct,
Okay. Do you recall telling the first detective you spoke to that you were just friends?
no,
Okay, if I were to show you a copy of that statement, would it reflect your recollection?
I never said that, but
If I were to show you a copy of the statement that you gave, would that perhaps?
Objection, improper impeachment.
She's done. Overruled. Go ahead.
If I were to show you a copy of that statement, would it perhaps refresh your recollection?
sure,
Judge, may I approach the witness?
Yes.
Which date?
Mr. Willis, I'm going to show you the front of it, and then I'm going to show you the page. Please read it to yourself and look up and tell me if it refreshes your recollection as to the nature of the relationship that you described. Okay, that's just to show you that it's you.
okay. Okay,
Does that adequately refresh your recollection?
it does.
Okay. So now, do you recall telling him that you were friends?
I was probably nervous.
Okay. That was the first detective that you spoke to, correct?
If it was Detective Bertrand,
Okay, you don't remember speaking to Detective Schlosser prior to speaking with Detective Bertrand?
no,
Well, do you recall telling Detective Bertrand that you were kind of, sort of dating?
Just objection to relevance to the elements of manslaughter.
Hold on. I'm going to sustain the objection. Go ahead.
Judge, can we approach?
Objection sustained. Go ahead.
Okay. testified earlier that you were dating him for 3.5 months, is that correct?
Yes,
So that would have put it, your relationship starting in about January?
at the end of January.
Okay. And do you recall telling the first officers that you spoke to that you met him at the end of February?
I do.
Okay. Now, I want to turn your attention to when you arrived at the party, whatever it was. You arrived at Corey's house.
Yes,
Okay. And you parked your car on the side of the house,
it was in front of the house.
in front of the house. So are you facing Terra Road with your car?
Yes.
On Claridge Drive?
Yes,
Okay, and there's a stop sign right there in the corner of his property or his parents'
I
property?
parked right on the stop sign.
Okay. You stayed in the car,
Yes,
okay, and Corey came out to greet Mr. Knight, correct?
yes,
Okay, he said, "I need to talk to you,"
yes,
and that was Corey.
yes.
Okay. Now, when Mr. Knight is finally ready to leave this gathering, it's actually Walter that walks into the car, correct?
I didn't know who it was.
Okay, but you do know now, correct?
Yes,
Okay, and that was Walter Stanley, correct?
I still don't know his last name, but yes,
Walter.
yeah.
Okay, did you know him to have more than one friend named Walter?
I honestly never met him,
Okay,
so,
but you now know it was someone named Walter
Objection,
Yes.
asked and answered.
that walked into the car.
Objection, asked and
Okay,
answered.
sustained, go ahead.
As they're walking to the car, they're having a conversation, correct?
yes,
And you actually hear,
Objection calls for hearsay.
it's not for the truth of the matter, sir.
What?
What I'm, is not for the truth of the matter. Okay, so Mr. Knight is having a conversation with Walter,
yes,
and Mr. Knight then gets in the car,
yes,
and you pull away,
yes,
and Walter is still there.
he goes back to the party, yeah.
Okay. Now, the stop sign where the altercation took place is about a block or so from Mr. McMahon's house, correct?
Correct.
But it's sort of around the corner from the direction that you were facing.
Kind of behind, yes,
Okay. Now, if you were standing, or well, where you were parked, you could kind of see that stop sign, correct?
yes,
Okay, and that's the stop sign at Terra Road and Miramar Parkway?
yes,
Okay. Now, you testified that the beige car that you later saw actually pulled around you?
yes,
Okay. You never told the police, correct?
Yes, I
Objection,
did.
improper impeachment.
Overruled, go ahead.
yes, I did. I told them that night.
Okay. You just testified that you did tell the police that, correct?
I did.
Okay. So you're saying that you did not tell the police that you didn't notice the car or see the car prior to pulling away?
I did not.
Okay, and you remember giving a statement to detectives on the night of this incident, correct?
Correct.
And it's your testimony that you did not tell them that you did not see the car.
Do I?
It's your testimony that you did not tell them you didn't see the car ahead of time.
I did not see the car ahead of time until they pulled around us and pulled up to the stop sign.
Okay, but that is not what you told the police, correct?
Objection, improper impeachment.
She has them. Overruled, go ahead.
I told Detective Bertrand and Detective Zeller that night, when I went back the second time, that the car did go around us
When you went back where the second time?
to the crime scene.
when you're speaking to Detective Zeller and Detective Bertrand?
Yes, ma'am. After I found out he had been killed.
Mr. Muller,
Yes, sir.
just when you finish answering the question, just stop until the next question is answered. I know because when there's a little gap like this, you have a tendency to speak more.
Yes, sir.
Just, once your question's answered, just wait for the next one.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Is it your testimony that you do not remember speaking to anyone about this prior to speaking to Detective Bertrand?
I do not.
Okay, so you pull out, you get to the stop sign, it just takes a few seconds, correct?
To get to the stop sign?
Stop sign at Terra Road, Miramar Parkway.
Correct.
Okay, and you testified that they were, the car in front of you, the beige car, was sitting there for a long time,
For a couple minutes.
a couple minutes, and that's before Mr. Knight gets out of the car.
Correct.
Okay. Did you ever give a different answer to that question?
Not that I recall.
Okay, you actually stated that it was just a couple
Objection,
seconds.
improper impeachment.
Sustained.
Do you remember speaking to Detectives Bertrand and Detective Zeller on May 9th of 2014?
I do.
And on that day, they asked you to swear to tell the truth?
Yes.
Okay. And you told them on that day,
Objection, improper impeachment.
Sustained.
do you recall telling them
Objection, improper impeachment.
Sustained.
if I show you a copy of that statement that you gave, would that refresh your recollection? The statement that you gave on May 9th, 2014.
I do remember talking to them.
Okay. Judge, may I approach?
Yes.
I'm going to show you the front so that you know what it is, and then I'm going to, and then I'm going to point you to a specific page. Please read it to yourself.
Okay.
Look up when you finish.
Okay. Okay.
You told them you were there a couple seconds, and then Mr. Knight tapped the horn, correct?
Wait a minute. She read the whole thing?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Correct.
And on that day, you took the same oath that you took in here today.
I did.
Can we go sidebar, please? Clear my mind. Go ahead.
Now, when Mr. Knight got out of the car at the stop sign, you heard him call out the name Wolf.
Yes.
Correct? And he starts walking toward the car in front.
Yes.
Okay, you said he wasn't angry.
Nope.
And then you said the passenger then exits the car,
Yes.
and he's standing up against the open car door.
Yes.
So he would be facing your car than the passenger.
Yes.
Okay, now you testified that they talked for a couple of minutes.
Yes,
And that Mr. Knight did most of the talking?
yes,
Now, you testified that Mr. Knight made a movement that looked to you as if he was going to shake the passenger's hand.
it was putting his hand out for a handshake.
Okay. And then you said that at that point, the passenger punched him in the face.
The passenger did punch him, or what I thought was a punch.
And did you see where Mr. Baptiste, the passenger's fist connected to Mr. Knight's face?
No, all I saw was blood.
I'm sorry. was-
All I saw was blood fly.
Okay. Did you see, though, that it was a punch to the face?
No,
Okay.
because it was on the opposite side of me.
Okay. And at this point, the driver is still sitting in the car. Is that correct?
Yes,
And then you see Mr. Knight put the passenger in a bear hug,
yes,
and they're tussling, I guess.
yes,
Okay. And then they fall into the car.
yes,
Okay. And the driver gets out of the car
Yes.
at that point. Okay. And you hear the passenger yell, "Who is this? Who is this?"
after I get over to the car.
Okay. So the driver's already out of the car.
Yes,
Okay.
and I'm over at the car.
And they're in the car. The passenger and Mr. Knight are in the car, and you hear the passenger screaming, "Who is this?" Or,
Who is this G?
okay. Could it have been D, or are you sure it was G?
It was G.
Okay.
He was talking to the driver.
Now, Mr. Elder, sorry. Okay. You got out of the car at the point they were already in the car, Mr. Knight and the passenger?
Yes,
How long did it take for them to get, as they're locked together, into the car?
it's just a matter of seconds.
Okay. And is that the same point that you get out of the car that the driver gets out of the car?
Yes,
Okay. And the driver was actually trying to break up the fight?
Objection calls for speculation as to what the driver was doing.
Sustained.
When the driver got out of the car, what did he do?
stood behind me.
Was he saying anything to either of the people in the car?
No,
Was anyone saying anything to him?
I mean, other than me, no. Other than
Who is this?
the passenger asking him who Muhammad was.
Okay. And the passenger was also screaming, "He's trying to kill me," correct?
No,
Objection called.
Go ahead.
Okay. It looked to you like the passenger was trying to break up the fight, correct?
no,
Okay. Did you ever testify any differently than that, or give a different statement?
no.
You recall speaking to police on the night of the incident, correct?
Yes,
And at that time, you told them the driver...
Objection, improper impeachment.
Sustained.
May I approach the witness?
Yes.
Can I s-
Go ahead.
I'm going to show you the front so you know that it's you. And then I'm going to point you to this page.
Okay.
You going to call them out on the night of the incident, telling them that the driver was trying to get them to stop?
I don't recall that, but I guess I said it.
And that was 4 years ago, correct?
4.5.
On the night of the incident. Correct?
Correct.
Now, you testified before, Ms. Oplazian asked you if you participated in the subsequent investigation of this case.
Yes.
And she asked you about giving statements. Obviously, you gave several statements.
Yes.
Okay. You used some photos.
Yes.
You actually was able to obtain the name of the people involved in this, correct? During this investigation.
Not until weeks later.
But it was prior to looking at photos that you knew.
No, ma'am, it wasn't until May 1st.
Excuse me, can we approach on it for one moment?
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to ask you to step out. Don't even sit down. Just, no, I don't want to say that because you're probably stand there for 10 minutes. This is supposed to be real quick, so just go back and get you right back out. Elaine, stay right there. We're not going to be that long. Mr. Gembolis, there was a pretrial ruling. There was a pretrial ruling that the state was to apprise you of certain information, and it just was going back and forth. So why don't you just do it so we're clear on the record?
Sure. So, Ms. Gembolis, I didn't ask you any questions about what Ms. Curtis might continue to ask you about, and I want you to know that the judge made a ruling that you cannot disclose to the jury where you found the photograph. If Ms. Curtis asks you about the photograph, you cannot disclose where you found it, which I believe was some type of arrest.
Right.
Okay, so we're not going to talk about the website or the arrest or the prior arrest or any prior bad act that you may or may not know about regarding Demetrius Elder. Do you understand?
Yes.
And Judge May, if a question is asked of you that you think might result in that answer, is it okay if she stops and asks for direction? Because I don't want anything coming out that's going to cause any type of mistrial.
Do you have any questions, first of all, on what you cannot testify to? We don't want any testimony coming before the jury concerning Mr. Elder's past. So if you were to testify, I looked on some Florida Department of Corrections website, and I saw his picture there.
Okay.
It's going to be a mistrial. We're going to start all over again.
Okay.
So it is imperative that you not mention that. Now, if a question is asked of you, and I don't think it will be, but you're going to go back. If a question is asked of you that you think the answer has to do with something that you saw on some website, like the Department of Corrections or Broward County Sheriff's Department, stop.
Okay.
And, look at me and say, I don't want her to say any direction. I just want her to stop and look at me. And then I'll just send the jury out and we'll talk about it. Or she'll just withdraw the question, okay?
Okay.
All right, bring it back.
Thank you.
Have a bite of candy. Oh, it's got candy. so I can have some candy. Just kidding. Please be seated.
Okay, so I was asking you about participation in the investigation. Photographs that you looked at before, you had actually looked up photographs online, correct?
Not until,
Photographs of the people involved in this incident with Mr. Knight, correct?
not until after the lineups.
Okay. Now, you testified that when this whole event was over, that it appeared to you that Mr. Knight didn't even realize that he was hurt. Correct?
Objection calls for speculation.
I'm going to overrule it. Go ahead.
I never
That's what
said
it
that.
appeared to her to be. Go ahead.
I said his adrenaline was pumping so hard.
Okay, but you said that you didn't realize.
I never said he didn't realize he was hurt.
You also testified that he was sweating profusely, correct?
After he lay down.
Now, you testified on direct that after Mr. Knight disengaged from the passenger, that the driver and the passenger began punching and kicking him.
Correct.
And again, you spoke to police that night, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So if I may first read this with a statement.
Which statement?
First one. I'm going to ask you to take a look at this and
Hold
tell
on.
me.
One second.
Sorry.
Go ahead, Vince. I'm sorry.
You didn't tell them in your first statement, correct?
Tell him what?
You didn't tell them in the first statement that the passenger and the driver were punching and kicking.
Objection,
Mr. Knight.
negative impeachment.
Sustained.
You remember giving a statement to the police that night, correct?
When I went back, yes, I did.
Okay, prior to going back.
There's a lot I didn't tell them the first time.
Okay, and is that one of those things?
Is that one of what things?
The punching and the kicking, is that one of
Yes.
those things you didn't tell them the first time?
Yes.
May I have a moment, Judge?
Yes.
I don't have any more questions. Thank you.
Redirect.
Very briefly, Your Honor. Ms. Gembolis, let's talk about just this last question. Do you know how many statements you gave to law enforcement in the investigation of this case?
Several.
And do you remember if police came to the scene right then and there?
There was police right away, but I didn't really get to talk to anybody until the detectives got there, which
Okay.
was hours later.
So, you're not sure how many are you sure of how many statements you've given and for what purpose?
No.
But whenever a law enforcement officer contacted you to give a statement in the investigation of the case, did you do so?
Yes.
And who asked the questions, you or the law enforcement officer?
The law enforcement officer.
Thank you. No further questions.
Thank you, Miss. You are excused.
Thank you.
Your next witness.
Yes, Your Honor. The state called Ashley Farrow. And then after this witness, if I could have, if Your Honor wants to take afternoon break or not, I need to set the technology up for my next witness.
Okay. And you do remember the time frame?
Yes, that witness, Your Honor, is scheduled at 3:30. I was, if you want, I'll cancel him and come back tomorrow, but
You just remember what time we have to end tonight. We have to end like at 4:45 tonight.
Yes, Your Honor. So after this witness, if we could just take a short afternoon break, and then I'll have one witness left for today.
Please raise your right hand.
You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Please state your full name and spell your last name for the record.
Ashley Marie Farrow, as in Frank, E-R-R-O.
Please have a seat, make yourself comfortable, Ms. Barrow. Please seat up, get close to the microphone, state your name prior.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon, Ms. Farrow.
Good afternoon.
Where do you live?
Pompano Beach, Florida.
Where did you live before that?
Miami Lakes, Florida.
I want to draw your attention to April of 2014. Where were you living?
In Miami Lakes, Florida, 6960 Northwest 186th Street, apartment 420.
Who were you living with?
Demetrius Elder.
How long had you been living with him?
About a year.
What was your relationship to him?
Boyfriend, girlfriend.
How long were you boyfriend and girlfriend?
Total of 7 years.
As of April of 2014, how long had you been dating?
4 years? Since 2009.
At that time, what type of car did you have?
An Impala.
Did you also at some point get another car?
Yes.
Tell us about your two cars as of April of 2014.
Sure. I had a 2002 Impala that I was driving previously, and then I got a lease, a Kia Optima.
Which car were you using?
Kia Optima.
And who was using the Chevy Impala?
Demetrius Elder.
I want to draw your attention to April 25th, 2014. Were you with Demetrius Elder on April 25th, 2014?
Don't recall.
Do you recall what time, were you living with him at that time? Okay, so would he have come back to your house on April 25th, 2014?
Yep.
Do you recall if he did?
I woke up to him, I'm sure.
Okay, so are you telling us you were sleeping, or?
I mean, yes, actually I was.
Okay. Do you recall giving a statement to law enforcement on May 2nd, 2014?
Yes.
And at that point, on May 2nd, 2014, you didn't know anything about what occurred on April 25th, 2014.
Correct.
Sorry.
Objection meeting.
You didn't. I'll go for it. She's already answered it. Go ahead. Continue.
When the police spoke to you on May 2nd, 2014, did you know anything about what occurred on April 25th, 2014?
No.
As of today, do you know what happened on April 25th, 2014?
No.
No further questions. Oh, excuse me. May I ask an additional question?
Just one.
Do you see Demetrius Elder in the courtroom today?
Yes.
Could you please point to him and identify him by an article of clothing?
Suit.
What color?
Black.
No further questions. Thank you, Ms. Barrow.
Thank
Questions?
you.
No questions.
Thank you, Mr. Earl. You can step down.
Thank you.
Judge, the next witness is Dr. Boyko. I can make a phone call and see if he can get here sooner, if we could take a break.
What about-
Or,
Sidebar.
sure. Judge, can we approach?
Yes. We are going to take our afternoon break now. I thought we'd have a quick answer to whether we're going to get another witness here today. So if you just step back, relax a little bit. We're waiting to hear on another witness.